Streaming to you live today from this beautiful city, Mexico City. Uh, Here for a few meetings, but had to do this. There are so many things that are happening, so many things going on, and obviously the sentiments sometimes mostly negative at this point of time. But had to talk about few things that have been that you can see that are evident on Twitter especially, and of course in the comment section and Instagram. Of course, you guys also don't hold back, right? Some of you are absolutely I don't know what do you guys think. So when you start your day, are you all geared up that today I have to troll someone, I have to fight with someone, I have to spew so much of negativity and hatred? Sometimes I don't understand why would you come with that kind of an attitude. Uh, International students at this point of time are already under so much of stress. Whether you are a Canadian, whether you are a Canadian permanent resident, whether you are a person who is not even in Canada, but I don't know, something about this whole situation, you get some joy out of it, right? By trying to trigger people who are at this point of time quite stressed, quite worried, and you only come out and try and tell them, oh, you are international students, you wrote in your SOP that you will go back, why don't you go back, and those kind of things. uh, yeah, so when I see those kind of comments on Instagram, and you see those comments on Twitter, and then you wonder, even if you are a Canadian, were you always a Canadian? Were your parents Canadians? Were your ancestors? Everybody. So Canada has always been a land of immigrants. There has always been people who have come to Canada from different parts of the world. Now, you may not like certain things about other people, but then that's what diversity is all about. That is what inclusion is all about, right? That is what tolerance is all about. That is what makes Canada so beautiful. That's what inspires so many people who want to come to Canada. This has been the land of abundance. This has been the land of resources. This is known as one of the politest countries in the world. So whatever happened to all of that? Why why are we now resorting to spewing so much of hatred, so much of negativity? Why have we forgotten that you or your parents or your grandparents or your great grandparents also at some point of time came to Canada, found it very very difficult, made it work for yourself, made it work for themselves, made it aligned everything for you, and now you are sitting here in a position and making those derogatory comments? Why would you do that, right? Yeah, I mean, obviously there is nobody is perfect. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, people around us are not perfect, life is not perfect, and it is not supposed to be perfect. That's the beauty of it. That the beauty is in what you do the best with what circumstances you find yourself in. You're always playing the cards that you are dealt with. You cannot choose in that situation. So instead of spewing all this negativity, if you could just be more compassionate, just be more sensitive. Yes, it's already difficult. You don't have to sort of start saying things and make become more insensitive. Uh, and if you are a person in decision making position, if you are a person who can change those policies, if you are a person who can actually become the change or make the change, then do that. Don't come out and just sort of, yeah, say all these things. Yeah, well, that was my rant to start with, but it just goes on. I know my saying this is not going to make much of a difference to a lot of people. Probably you're going to start commenting on this one as well, and that's absolutely fine. I'm pretty used to that, pretty thick skinned on that matter. But sometimes the whole point is just to step back and think, well, what's exactly happening? Whose fault is it? The crisis, the housing crisis, the inflation, the healthcare, so much of stress on it, the education, so much of stress on it. Whose fault is it? Why is it happening? Instead of blaming or rather, instead of targeting the students, instead of targeting the new immigrants with your hatred, with your anger, with your resentment, why don't you target it towards the people who are responsible for what you are facing right now? I can face, or I can say the same things as well, that the traffic has become bad, the rents have gone up, the housing has become so difficult to get one into, the cost of the daily life, daily day-to-day living expenses has gone up, and who do you blame? Because there are more people in Canada right now. Is that what you're going to blame it to? Or you going to sort of direct it? Hey, elections are coming, right? So you know where where the different political parties are now looking at and what they have been doing. Talk to your MPs, talk to your MLAs, talk to your representative in your riding, discuss it with them, see what they can do to make these changes happen, and make bring back that same positivity towards the dynamics of the country, so that we can all be proud of what we have always been and what Canada has always been. The reason, okay, somebody's asking why are super chats off. The reason why super chats are off is because over the last few weeks, every time I do these live streams, I felt obligated to respond to super chats because somebody spent money, and obviously those get highlighted. And obviously there are so many people in the stream who are also asking questions, and those questions I never get to take a look at, because by the time I'm finished with the super chats, that's the amount of time I could spare for that live stream, and hence I couldn't take anything else. And therefore, for this session at least, or for the next few, I'm not going to do any super chats. I will sort of take away that aspect, so whereby you're not buying your way into sort of getting the questions answered. We'll just go and see how many questions we can answer quickly and possibly, and therefore we'll go with that. So that's the reason why super chats are off. Right. So today's discussion is all about the negativity around Canadian immigration, but obviously we'll talk about the weekly roundup. We will answer your questions, and I'm going to do that all very, very quickly. Canada is now 41 million strong in terms of the population, right? Just a few months back, 7-8 months back, we had touched 40 million, and very quickly we had added 1 more million now, so we are at 41 million. So you can imagine how the government is now rushing to sort of put a cap on the temporary residents and sort of bring those numbers down. Obviously, the infrastructure did not keep pace. Why? Did we not always know that we are going to be growing at this pace? Did we not always know what is our annual immigration target? Did we not know how many international students we are approving visas for? Did we not always know how many work permits we are approving? Did we not always know how many visitors are coming to Canada? Did we not always know how many refugee claimants we are allowing, or sort of we have into the country? And when the infrastructure is not keeping pace with all those numbers, who are you going to blame? The people who have come to Canada, or the people who did not, make responsible decisions so that the infrastructure could keep pace? Difficult decisions, right? Difficult questions. Nobody in the in the seats of power is going to answer these questions. And this is how it sort of becomes a difficult one. And we tend to then direct our anger towards other people and sort of, point fingers at them and say all those things. But 41 billion people, and Canada continues to sort of have more people continue to come in, the visitors, the international students, the workers. Currently, the number of temporary residents in Canada is now upwards of 3 million people. Is everybody going to become a permanent resident? In my opinion, and this might sound harsh to some of you, well, if you don't already know, then you should know that all of you are not going to become permanent residents. It will not happen, no matter how hard you try. And the reason for that is that the equation is the math, as they say, the math is not mathing, right? The equation is not going to add up here. It's not going to balance out. Either you're lacking in your profile in terms of the work experience, either you're lacking with the language proficiency skills, either you do not have the second language or the ability to get into the second language proficiency, or you do not have the educational skills, or your age is not on your side. But combination of all these factors is going to be the reason why what you thought a few years back would be an easy pathway is no longer going to be an easy pathway. And I've been saying this for almost 2 years now, that this is going to become more and more difficult. So again, 3 million people in Canada right now. And let's get started with our weekly roundup. We will talk very quickly about the PNP draws. I'm sure you already know. British Columbia did their PNP draw on the July 9th. People who already received their invitations obviously have it. The number of invitations with BC PNP has gone down, and therefore the scores are quite high there. Ontario on the 9th of July invited under the master's graduate stream. And there was one question here, and I would like to address that one. They invited 1,556 invitations. Score is of 54, not low by any standards, but I wouldn't call it very, very high either. But yes, on the same day, they also invited 110 candidates for the PhD graduate stream with a minimum score of 50 in the general draw. So master's graduate stream has happened. Let's see this question here. Uh, Karishma says OINP Masters Graduate Stream is another name of STEM draw. It is highly unlikely for any non STEM graduate to get this high point. So, what's the point of naming it Masters Stream when it is a biased one? Okay, so you have to understand this. Whenever you will not get what you are hoping to get, then you obviously will feel everything is biased. You will feel everything is rigged against you. Well, on the contrary, Ontario hasn't changed anything. They haven't changed the point structure. They haven't changed the format. They haven't changed the way they conduct the draws. Obviously, the only thing that they can do is issue X number of invitations. They do not have unlimited invitations to send out. Yes, this year they have 20,000 nomination quota, which basically means more for everybody around in the terms of categories, but that doesn't mean they have infinite number, right? Uh, will you blame it on more students or will you blame it on OINP, right? Again, this is where you have to sort of think and address it. If there are more international students who are completing master's graduate in STEM or in healthcare, in whichever that might be, in a location which is away from Greater Toronto area, and are able to score quite well in English language and were able to work as an international student and also have an income of $40,000 or more, well, then they have good scores, they have good points. Why would you call OINP to be biased? They haven't changed anything, right? So it's if you as a candidate is you're unable to get that score, don't call the system biased. Ontario never changed anything at any point of time. The scoring system hasn't changed, it has remained the same. You always knew when you started taking your master's program that this is the scoring, this is how you can get to what you want to get to. So how is it fair blaming Ontario for the high scores? It's actually the number of students who are now interested, who rather would want to go through the OIMP graduate stream rather than taking the express entry stream. Because earlier, if you were a master's student, you did not want to take the OINP master's graduate stream simply for the reason because it's very long. The processing time is very long, right? It's a non-express entry route. You will first take 3 to 5 months for your nomination, then it will take 18 to 24 months for your PR application. So it takes more time, and you didn't want to do that. You wanted to go 3 express entry because you're getting 30 extra points. You will have 3 years of work permit. You can get the work experience. Hey, you can get easily 500 plus if you have at least 1 year of work experience back home. If your language skill scores are high up there, you can easily get 500 plus. And if your work experience is in STEM or if your work experience is in any of the targeted occupation, you are bound to get your invitation. But lately, people have started realizing that it's more difficult within the express entry, and therefore they are rather choosing to go through the PNP route if they have an option. Then don't direct your anger towards that. Rather, identify areas in your profile where you can improve your scores, and then make it happen for you. Yeah. So that was Ontario's draw. Let's keep moving with this one. They also had another draw on the 11th of July, issued 1,227 invitations to the candidates in express entry skilled trade stream. Skilled trade stream has always been a very interesting one. This gives an opportunity to a lot of people who probably are on the low end of the express entry scores. The Ontario's express entry skilled trade stream has gone right down to 250 CRS scores, right? That was again about a year and a half back. Doesn't look like it's going to go down that low anymore because again, you see, this is how people do course correction. When they see things are not going in their favor, they course correct. They make the changes. They need to get work experience in as a under the skills trade. That's what they will do it, and that's what they have done. Therefore, more people are now within the express entry with the Ontario's skilled trade eligibility criteria fulfilled, and therefore, even after issuing 1,277 invitations, the low point was only at 408. 435 is only because the last express entry trade draw was at 436. Ontario's draws always play in tandem with the last express entry draw. So 436 was the express entry draw. Therefore, Ontario is issuing their high point at 435. About 46 NOC codes were invited for this draw. What do we have in Canada? IRCC invites 3,750 candidates in the third express entry draw of this week, or rather of that week when the draw was happening. 8th of July, they invited 3,000. I think there's a bit of a, yeah, I think the headline is not matching with what is being said. We have to sort of take this into, take this one out. Let's add this one here instead. And what does this say? No, where did this go? Let's see this one. Right. This was the express entry draw, 3,200 invitations. This was for the French language proficiency, which was on the 8th of July. Score was 420. Now, you see, 3,200 invitations issued, score of 420, which is telling more people are adding those French language proficiency points. Until few draws back, the scores were in 300s, right, for francophones. Now, even with the score is at 420, tells you more people are showing interest with the French language. Either people who are coming from those backgrounds where this is already the first language, right? You have the North African continent where a lot of countries do speak French. You also have certain countries within the Polynesian, certain Polynesian countries who also speak French. Of course, you have certain other countries where people are picking up the language, and then there are a lot of candidates who were otherwise struggling to get those scores, have also taken up French as a second language and are now adding those points. So yeah, all of this is making great strides. Okay, other news. What do we have in other news? More jobs now eligible for the employer job offer in-demand occupation stream. Now, in-demand occupation stream is also the Ontario's PNP stream. On 4th of July, they added several more NOC codes. I think about 25 new NOC codes have been added to the Ontario's list of eligible occupations. The requirement is that you should have at least 9 months of work experience and a job offer, and you should be able to create your account, get some scores, and then get invited, and then make your application for nomination. Because they have 35 NOC codes. Sorry, I didn't read that. 35 NOC codes have been added. Now, because this change has been made recently, my opinion would be that, or rather even speculation would be that there should be a draw for this in-demand occupation stream sometime somewhere around the corner. So if you're eligible, you have the 9 months of experience within these occupations, you have the employer who's given you the job offer. Now, the big thing with these NOC codes is that these are all tier category 4 and 5. So it's not only tier 0, 1, 2, 3 who are eligible for the PNP draws. Also in provinces like Ontario, an in-demand occupation stream, you will have tier 4 and tier 5 also being eligible. Please go through the list of the NOC codes. Head over to the Ontario website. You will have the full list there, and hopefully make that work for you. Now, negativity around international students and immigration in Canada. We have already seen that. We've already discussed that. But take a look at this picture. Here it tells you, and this is as of 2022. We don't even have 2023 or 2024 the numbers. But this tells you that the comparison of total annual spending by international student in comparison with Canada's services and merchandise exports, total spending by international students, can you believe that? $37.3 billion. That is how much international students are worth to Canada. And this is the numbers from 2022. I mean, we always knew the education industry in Canada is pretty heavy. I mean, the advocacy groups, they have solid weight as far as the lobbying is considered. Students in some way or the other within the Canadian economy, and yet there is a lot of finger pointing that goes on. I just want to, just clarify one aspect of this very common thing that I see about SOPs. A lot of people say, hey, you wrote in your SOP that you will go back to your home country. So you go back to your home country. You came to Canada to study. Well, the thing is, the Canadian education or the Canadian study pathway was never advertised, never promoted, was never projected as only a study in Canada pathway. From I think 2010 onwards, ever since this whole study in Canada was promoted by colleges, agents, commission agents, even Canada as the institution by itself, there was always that link that once you come to Canada, we will give you a work permit, so you get exposure of the Canadian labor market, and after having done that, you would be a good candidate who can transition in becoming a permanent resident easily. Therefore, we will give you additional points for your education in Canada, and we will give you additional points for your work experience in Canada. And hey, we do acknowledge dual intent. Dual intent being that your intention is to become a permanent resident or to stay in Canada permanently. But if you have a temporary intent whereby you want to come to Canada to study, to visit, and that is for temporary basis, and dual intent is acceptable in Canadian law as well as by IRCC as well. So as far as SOP is concerned, please bear in mind it is always the intent. The intention is that if I get the education and if I can make it work for me, these are the things that I intend to do, I plan to do. Well, plans change, intentions change. If I start liking Canada and I want to make it my home, and Canada has so many times already said that international students are great assets. Hey, this is telling you how great an asset international students are, right? 37 billion worth. And if Canada did not want the international students, well, then don't give them the extra points. Don't give them the pathways. Don't give them the work experience extra points by working in Canada, right? This Canadian work experience points or the education points. Don't always in your media releases, in your press conferences, come out and say that these are great assets, that they transition very well as permanent residents because they're already living in Canada. They're already fulfilling the labor market shortages. They make for great employees. They make for great, they've already assimilated here within the Canadian society and culture, and they make for great residents and citizens eventually. If you're going to be propagating such kind of message, and then more and more and more people come at your door knocking and saying, okay, we want to sort of take up that pathway that you were talking about, then don't blame it on them, right? Sort out your policies and then shut the doors completely and say we don't want them, so that people are aware, people are clear. If you have your message clear, people will have clarity. If you are going to give muddled messages all the time saying we want your money, we want you to do these jobs, but hey, we do not want to do this for you, then that's sort of great. And at the same point of time, when I'm saying all of these things in favor of international students, on the other hand, I have to agree, over the last few years, the quality of students, the quality of people who have come into Canada by using fraudulent documents, by using fraudulent language test results, by faking the finances, by faking their past education, that number has grown like crazy. And therefore, you now have the segment of students who are not interested in studying, who come to Canada only because they think in this, while they are here on a study permit, they can work cash jobs or whatever, make some extra bucks, and find another unscrupulous way of beating the system, getting around the system, and then finding a pathway, running fake payrolls, buying LMIs, and doing all those kind of things, and then getting their PR. Well, this segment of students has what has made it bad for everybody. This segment of individuals have basically put the entire student community into disrepute. And but then you have bad apples everywhere. And I know I'm going back and forth like a ping pong right now, but I just want to sort of draw that clarity for everybody out there, that you will always have bad apples, but don't paint everybody in the same with the same brush. Number one. Number two, identify these bad apples and then call them out, so that people who are in the know should be able to take some action against it. I don't know what exactly would be the solution for something to do, something to avoid something like this. But again, if IRCC has access to such high levels of artificial intelligences and tools and techniques, then why are they not able to identify these fraudulent documents? Why are they not able to get a better process out so that such kind of instances can be avoided? Why are you still approving diploma program study permits for people who have just completed high school? Because after you've completed high school and you're coming to Canada only to do a 2-year diploma, then the chances for PR pathways are very, very limited. When you are checking the study plans of international students, and if you can identify that these people will not be able to complete their education, then don't approve them. Yet we have seen so many instances where international students with absolutely questionable backgrounds have been able to get an approval, whereby genuine students with absolutely spectacular credentials were still not able to get an approval. So again, it all boils down to the process. It all boils down to the policies. It all boils down to what are the decision makers doing about this. which has resulted in this huge, big mess that we now have. That's all I have for today. That's enough of my rant. Sorry if I went on and on, but then had to get it out of the system, right? Uh, Connect with us on social media platforms. Of course, we are everywhere, and by all means, do hit a like, hit a subscribe, of course, and there are so many things that I've said I don't even. Okay, there's another one here. Just to maintain their image, government is accusing everyone they can. By the way, Mark Miller is as much of a failure as the ones before him. Ha ha ha. Lol. Again, I don't agree with that one. And the reason is actually Mark Miller is in a very difficult situation. He has inherited a system, or he has inherited circumstances which are against him. So even if he wants to do something good, he can't. Uh, Everything is stacked up against him. Look at the number of students. Look at the housing crisis. Look at everything that is going wrong. What is he going to do? So he is now in a position, or rather, he has now been put in a position where he has to make some difficult decisions. He has to make some difficult choices, which, to be very honest, in his defense, he has been doing. Obviously, we are going to not like those because they are not in our favor. But always bear in mind, Canada will do what is in Canada's favor, not in yours. Every time you will see something not going in your favor, for example, postgraduate work permits not being extended, for example, spouses no longer being made eligible to come to work in Canada for international students who have only a diploma. When you see these changes happening, you might not like it. You might call the government unfair. You might call names. You might call give bad names to Mark Miller, or call him all kinds of things. But he is doing what needs to be done. It's the need of the hour. He has to make these difficult decisions. So actually, yeah, he's doing all right, I think, in my opinion. All right, let's see what we can do with some questions. First of all, I don't have any predictions for transport draw, agriculture draw, STEM draw, healthcare draw. I don't know. I wish I knew. If I knew, well, that would be awesome. I would definitely let you know. I don't know about any draws, when they're going to happen. I do not know why CEC draw is not happening specifically. I do not know why OINP is not conducting STEM draw. These are all their internal policies. They all have reasons for withholding certain draws or for conducting some draws in more frequent manner. I am as much in the dark. No pun intended. I'm as much in the dark as you are, and I as much want to sort of look into different data trends or opinions that come out from different people who are in the know, or from the institutions, to see if there can be a glimpse of something there that we can take a look at and say, okay, this is the reason why it's happening. And if I come to know, trust me, I would definitely let you guys know. So all these questions, that is talking about what is the prediction, what are the scores, etc., 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 which scores can come, can be invited, which scores will not be invited. I honestly don't know. So those are not the questions I will be taking. Okay, I'm not sure. All right, somebody said, I think you mean Indian immigration. The problem is that there is no true diversity of immigrants because it's just Indians, and then obviously the fraud, the protests don't help improve their image. Okay, true diversity of, again, you see, it all goes back to who's the policy maker, who's the decision maker. If you guys, I mean, I don't know who you are, but if people by and large have a problem with Indians, or rather so many Indians, well, then challenge the charter. Change the constitution, change the charter, which says that they cannot be biased towards any specific race or nationality, right? That's number one. Number two, are you going to hold it against Indians if there are so many of them who probably qualify, who probably can score better, who probably speak better, who probably have the work experience? Are you going to hold it against them, right? And are you going to hold it against them that they are 1.4 billion and growing? And so you have to take it into perspective. Yes, there could be no true diversity the way you are looking at, but you have to go back as to where the whole thing is originating. And if it is about not having too many individuals from the same country or same nationality, then go back to the root of it, change the policies, change the way you are selecting or inviting individuals, and then make the changes over there. The thing is that you will not be able to do that, is because the Constitution of Canada doesn't allow that. They did that in the past. The Canadian history is tainted in so many instances of bias against certain nationalities, whether it was the Indian, whether it was the Chinese. There is plenty of instances over there. And at the same point of time, I also understand that the fraud and all those instances are also have been noticed more with Indians. It's not that Indians are committing more fraud. Actually, fraud is everywhere within the country itself, within the white collar, within the blue collar, even within the European nations as well. The fraud is everywhere. It's just that because over the last few years, more Indians have come into Canada, you are identifying it and pinning it probably only on the Indians. Again, my opinion. You can say I'm biased. You can say I'm sort of protecting or defending. I am not doing that. I'm just calling the pot black, if you want to say that. But in this situation, it is if they wanted to have less of Indians, then they need to go back into the root of the policy making, the decision making, and then change everything from there on. Otherwise, Indians, they are very strong, 1.4 billion people. Their economy is good. Their economy is strong. They will always keep looking for exposure, experiences outside. Sometimes for economic reasons, sometimes for other reasons which they might not be happy about. Sometimes they might feel it's greener pasture. Sometimes they might find Canada as a springboard to the United States, or otherwise, or whatever that might be, or whatever the reason might be. When you are claiming to be a country which does not believe in racism, which does not believe in, which basically believes in inclusion, then any country should be welcome. But if you're going to hold it against them because there are so many of them, then that's not right either, right? Okay, what else do we have? Somebody said can't hear properly. I'm not sure if you can, but I think. Okay, somebody said, sorry to correct you, the reason they don't respect the law of this country, that's the reason are you referring to? Probably pretty early in our stream. But again, it's not about somebody is not respecting the law in a country. The problem is the enforcement of law. For example, I've stayed a huge part of my life in Dubai, okay? And the law enforcement over there is pretty awesome. And the reason is because they're able to enforce the law. They're able to take action. Sometimes in Canada, you can get away with almost anything. People have had such serious offenses and they're able to get out on bail the very next day. So probably, again, it's coming back to the same thing. It's going back to the policy making. It's going back to the decision making. It's going back to the people who are in the seats of power. And what are they doing about it? So if there are people who are not following the law, where is the enforcement of law, so that in future others are deterred from making those kind of offenses? Yeah, makes sense. Okay, my opinion. What else is there? All right. Okay, let's take this one. Got PR grant 2 days ago. How to get parents PR? Not that easy, my friend. Getting parents PR at this point of time is only one way to do it, and that is through the parents grandparents lottery, for which you need to have at least 3 years of eligible income to meet the threshold, and then you have to enter the lottery once that opens. As of right now, since 2020, the lottery did not open. The pool did not open for the lottery, and once you're eligible, you can enter that lottery pool, and once your parents are invited or picked in that lottery, then you can apply, or they can apply for their PR. Okay, what else is there? Expectations of transport. I obviously, as I said, I cannot give any answers there. Running restaurant with parents. Problem is all documents are in their name. If they give me an experience letter, will that help? Will it be of value to get me direct PR? Don't have any degree diploma. Well, that's a difficult one to answer because very limited information there. So you can either be self-employed or you can be an employee. Here, you're running the restaurant with your parents, but your parents own the restaurant, means you are an employee. And if you are being paid, if you can genuinely prove your work experience, then yes, it helps you to establish your work experience. However, if you do not have a degree or diploma, then my friend, it's going to be very, very difficult uphill task. Then the only thing that is left is, if you only have high school diploma, then in your case, the only thing left would be then to look at programs such as AIP, Atlantic Immigration Program, RNIP, programs in Saskatchewan such as hard to fill skills pilot. But in all of these, you will need to find an employer who can offer you a job, who can give you a job offer, and then use that as the pathway. Okay, I feel it's individual's fault, 50 to 60%. Government wise, there is 40%. Again, it's a matter of individual opinion. Different people have different experiences. Different people have different opinions as to whose fault and where does it lie. Again, it comes back to the same thing. You make proper policies, you make proper decisions right at the root level, and therefore you will then start seeing it propagating in a manner where it is implemented in a proper manner. Of course, we can always say who's at fault and who is not. You look tired. Please take care of yourself. Thank you. Thank you, Anup. I really appreciate it. Right. This is score is 501 without accompanying spouse. Spouse currently on spouse open work permit. I got PR invitation on 4th July in Trade Express 436 cutoff. Can I include my spouse after I got ITA with my spouse? Score is 480. Yes, you can. Absolutely, you can add your spouse as spouse accompanying in your PR application, as long as your new score does not, or rather still meets the cutoff or is still higher than the cutoff, then absolutely you can add your spouse. No problem there. Okay. PCC is 5.5 months old from the country of residence. Can I still use it? Yes, as long as your police clearance is it was not issued no earlier than 6 months, then you can still use it. The validity of the PCC is 6 months. Okay, people are still saying voice is not clear. I'm not sure. Can you please put your comments and let me know if the voice is clear or not, and I'll try and add something different here to the voice. Okay. I am on PGWP. Wife has a spouse open work permit. I'm going to convert from postgraduate work permit to closed work permit via LMIA. Can I apply for closed work permit and my wife's open work permit in one GC key application? Yes, you can. So when you're completing your closed work permit application, in that you can also add your family member's application and therefore be able to apply for your spouse's open work permit. I will complete my 2 years of experience in July, but I started my work in May. But due to medical reasons, I stopped working for 3 months. I'm in the pool for 481. Can I submit my docs after July? Well, technically, if you can complete your 2 years of experience after July, then yes, absolutely. I'm assuming this work experience is inside Canada. Okay, we just did this one. What is the future of OINP skilled trade draw? Well, I don't see that future is going anywhere. I think it's pretty strong. I think they will continue for the very reason because trades category continues to be something which is currently in which is here quite in demand at this point of time. Okay. What else is there? How old can the PCC be at the time of AOR? Can it be 5+ months old? Yes. As long the day you submit your application, if on that date your PCC is valid, and the PCC will remain valid for 6 months from the date of issue. So your PCC needs to be valid on the day you're submitting your application, and you're good to go. Okay, what is this one? I got approved for closed work permit on 8th of June, but date on work permit is 5th of June. My last day at work is 6th of June. Will this cause any issues? I don't think so, because I think it's a matter of only 1 day here. I think the 7th is the only date that you have a problem with. I don't think it will be an issue. With only 100K PR spots per year, will 1 million plus TR will return? Will this be a reality? Well, first of all, it is not 100K PR. It's actually more than that. The total target for permanent residents per year is roughly 500,000 right now. And with 500,000, roughly 260,000 is under the economic immigration programs. So there you go. The number of PR spots available for you is 265,000, approximately, give or take a few. with 1 million plus temporary residents, yes, I am absolutely certain you will see a lots and lots and lots of temporary residents who will return back to their home countries, or who will at least leave Canada at some point of time. May not happen this year, will happen progressively over the next 2 to 3 years, but you can absolutely see lots and lots of temporary residents who will be returning back to their home countries because they cannot find any pathway here anymore. The same thing has happened with Australia, and I'm sure people who have been living in Australia or who have come to Canada from Australia will tell you that this has also happened with them, that in Australia, when they changed the laws, when they changed the immigration laws, a lot of these things were also, something similar was seen there as well. Okay, got OINP skill trade. Shall I mention all my work experience in the file or just skill trade? Well, if you are completing your OINP application, please mention all your work experience within the last 10 years. Okay, that is what they're looking for in your application. What is your opinion on the demands for extension of postgraduate work permit and granting of PR to international students and immigration lawyers, social justice groups joining the protests? I am of the opinion that the postgraduate work permit should not be extended. There should absolutely be no reason for giving any further extensions. This was always clear. The postgraduate work permits cannot be extended. It was always, people always knew it. People always were aware of it. People always, even before you filed your study permit application, you knew that. The only exemption that was made was in 2021 and 2 and 3, of course, because of the COVID and the impact that it had on the people with the jobs and the loss of jobs. So just to be fair, they did that. But more importantly, Canada did that because immediately after the COVID situation was better and it improved, there was serious, a big shortage of, there was a huge labor market shortages that were made aware of. They were made aware of, and therefore they wanted to sort of ensure that there were a lot of workers who could very quickly fulfill those roles. So, as I said before, Canada does everything only in the favor of Canada, never in your favor. So people thought they were the ones who were getting advantage. It's not that. It's people thinking they were getting the advantage, but it was Canada who wanted advantage of that. And therefore, at this point of time, with the unemployment rate shooting through the roof, I think it's at about 12.6% right now, with the hue and cry around the housing crisis, with the situation the way it is right now, with so much of negativity and the negative sentiment within the Canadian citizens and permanent residents right now, I do not think the government is going to extend postgraduate work permits, regardless of the protests, regardless of what the claims might be, regardless of these immigration lawyers or social justice groups claiming anything. Because you have to first of all understand, why should the postgraduate work permits be extended? Why? Where is the reason to sort of validate such an extension? And if they extend it now, again, then the next year, then what wrong did this year's, the people whose work permits are expiring this year, what wrong did they do? Then you go to the next year and what wrong did they do? Why should their work permits not be extended? So if they have to start doing this, then this would then become a proper policy and a law, right? That they have to always extend postgraduate work permits. That shouldn't be the rule, right? International students came to Canada to study and from there on gain work experience in a limited period of time. And in that entire journey, while they were studying and while they were working as postgraduate work permit holders, if they were able to find a pathway, if they were able to identify a way to become permanent residents, then that is, I think, that is where the message has got muddled up, that they have not been able to convey it properly. That within this journey, if the students were then able to identify a pathway and then transition as permanent residents, then that's what they should be looking to do. However, the whole thing has completely been manipulated, has been misinterpreted, people have been misguided and saying that once you come to Canada, then you must get a permanent resident. It's as if people have started claiming it as their right, just the way you said it here, that they should be granting of PR to international students. Again, in 2021, IRCC did it. They sort of shot themselves in the foot by conducting a draw of 75 CRS, right? They shot themselves in the foot by that the program that they launched, TR to PR. That was a horrible program. The 75 CRS, a horrible move. However, we are now seeing the repercussions of those disastrous moves that Sean Fraser at that point of time and Marco Mendicino's. When these guys made all those moves, we are now seeing that the repercussions of it right now. So the international students, they are bearing the brunt of those poor decisions at that point of time. So to claim that the postgraduate work permit should be extended, in my opinion, I don't think that's going to happen for the reasons that I've just given to you. And as far as looking at how this is going to go ahead, I think none of the political leaders would want to sort of be seen as acknowledging, not acknowledging, but actually accepting that and proceeding with it. For example, Prince Edward Islands, they have already said very clearly that they will not be going ahead. They will not be giving into the demands. They've already made it very clear. They will not be doing it. Tomorrow something changes because the Trudeau is almost on a borrowed time, at least the way the political opinions are looking like. And if they make some drastic decisions, well, of course, that can always happen. Who am I to say? I mean, I'm not a know-all, right, at the end of the day. So those things can always happen. Chances and the likelihood of that happening, I don't think it's happening. Currently working with employer for more than a year now. Can they apply for an LMIA for me for the same profile I've been working for so far? Would it be easy to difficult if I'm already working? So you working has got nothing to do with the LMIA application. LMIA application is the employer's application. People always confuse that and thinking that they will have an impact. You will not have any impact on an LMIA application. It's the employer who has to prove that they have the financial ability, that this is a genuine position, and that they were unable to find a Canadian permanent resident or a Canadian citizen to do this job. If they are able to establish these factors and that there is a genuine requirement for this position, then the LMIA shouldn't have a problem. What is the minimum investment money for startup entrepreneur visa? There is no investment amount for a startup visa. You should have funds for sure, but then the whole premise of startup visa is that you have the support of the angel investors or the VCs, the venture capitalists, or of course the support from incubators. You should have, of course, finances to show that you will be able to set up your business once you're coming to Canada, but there is no specific number that has been identified by IRCC to say that this is the investment money you require. My suggestion usually is to have at least $150,000 if you're doing a startup. I saw a video where you mentioned getting documents notarized for PR application. Can you please go over some tips you suggest for PR application? I don't think I have ever suggested getting documents notarized. There is no requirement for notary of documents. Absolutely. The only time you need to get the document notarized is, what do you say? You do a one and same person affidavit, or you're providing some affidavit to sort of further claim or to further emphasize on something. Translations, they need notary. Other than that, there is no requirement for any notarization for any documentation. As far as helpful tips is concerned, well, first of all, police clearances, the biggest reasons why applications get refused. Work experiences, please make sure that your NOC codes match. That is one of the biggest problems there. A lot of people have been realizing that their NOC codes that they have chosen do not match with their job description. With the onset, with what we have in social media nowadays, right? Everybody is an expert. Everybody can make a video. Everybody can express an opinion. The problem is people take those opinions as a law or a rule, and they follow that without understanding the actual premise of the law, without the actual interpretation of the law. So it's very important that when you go to the Facebook groups, when you go to the social media platforms, when you go to all these forums and channels, of course, learn from other people's experiences, but don't fall into the trap of believing their assumptions and their interpretations to be the hard rule as far as the immigration law is concerned. Always do your due diligence, always do your research, always understand what the actual law states, what the actual IRCC website states, and then follow that instead of some random person on some random forum giving you advice. I did not file my fiance's application for OINP International Student Stream. I got the nomination. Can I add her as an applicant? for a non-express entry PR application? Well, you must inform Ontario. And if I'm assuming you are saying fiance's application, then this is probably a common law partner. If it is a common law partner, then yes, you should inform Ontario as well. And then yes, by all means, you can add your common law partner in your non-express entry PR application. If you're just referring to your fiance, then your fiance has no legal standing in your application. So please be very clear whether it's a fiance, somebody who you intend to get married to, but is not in a common law relationship with you, or is a common law partner. Then that is a relationship by itself, which is acknowledged and has a legal standing in Canada. Okay. What nonsense. Government said they will give priority to domestic application, but 3,200 for French when they have applications from outside too. Are you serious? What a fail. Okay, I have no idea what we are referring to over here. And again, you can have your opinion about what government is saying and what the nonsense is. And as much as you might consider it nonsense, that is provided because you have very little sight or little understanding of what the big picture is. So you are looking at a very tiny aspect of the picture and saying, hey, this is what it says, but actually that's not how it is. Yes, there was Mark Miller's announcement about they logically looking at domestic draws, or they conducting more domestic draws, but that did not mean that they will overrule the francophone priority. Francophone priority has been very clearly established, something that they wish to pursue, whether it was the mandate letter, whether it was the immigration targets. So why would you think that these two things need to interject or clash, right? So you need to get your clarity right before you call something nonsense. My brother lives in Canada. Can I claim sibling points after his COPR, or wait till his PR card? I live with him as well. No, you can claim points the minute your brother gets COPR. PR card has got nothing to do with this. PR card does not further confirm your PR status. Your COPR confirms. Your COPR says that you are now a permanent resident. Your PR card has, it doesn't really mean anything at all in this case. Okay, I have masters from Ontario, got 1 year work permit. A month later, the rule changed to 3-year permit for master's student irrespective of the duration of the course. So your question is, if you're asking me, can you ask them to give you 3-year? Well, then what you can do, yes, absolutely, you can raise, you can apply for another work permit. You can apply for an extension if you want to call it. You can apply for another work permit. And in that, provide a detailed explanation of what you are planning to, what you are expressing. Request them to give you additional 2 months of work permit, since now obviously the law and policy has changed, and hopefully they can consider you there as well. But mind you, if you had already received your work permit before the new law came into change, then it always is their discretion whether they will accept it or not. I have submitted my PR application and I'm on visitor record. Can I apply for bridge open work permit against my expired postgraduate work permit, or I go for a visitor record extension? Time IRCC takes to process CEC application till ECU. Well, the current processing time is roughly 6 months, so you can expect that. And if you are already on a visitor record, then you cannot apply for a bridge open work permit. If you are still within that 90 days after your work permit expired, if you're still within that restoration period, then you may still have a chance to apply for bridge open work permit. But if you already have a visitor record, then you can no longer apply for a bridge open work permit. Okay. My NOC code for same time is different in my expired profile. I realized I used a wrong NOC code, and after getting it checked, I will correct it. Will it be an issue? No, there is not. It's not an issue. As long as you have genuine documentation to establish your work experience, then no, it is not a problem at all. Okay, we have lots of same questions coming up. So I'm just going to scroll right down to your, okay, let's see this one. Wish there was an easier way to sponsor and bring your outland spouse if you had a PR. I thought the current process is extremely easy as well. I'm not sure what you are referring to as an easier. What exactly would you want to be easier? I mean, All they are saying is that you have to be eligible, as in you're married, that it's a genuine relationship, and that you do not have any, you're not using any social services, and that you are not that you're not using any social services, you're not basically on any services, which basically means that you will not be able to support your spouse. I mean, what exactly do you want them to make it easier on? I mean, where is it not easy? I mean, I always thought it was an extremely easy application. Okay. I got NOI from Ontario. My previous employer is not willing to give an employment verification letter. Can I provide other documents to verify it? Well, you need these three things to be established. You need to establish your work period, as in from which date to which date were you working, how many hours per week were you working, because you're getting points for a period of work experience. You need to prove that you were paid, so bank statements, pay stubs, income tax returns. And third is you need to prove your NOC. The NOC is proven by way of your job description. So if your company can give you an official job description, or if you have a company's HR policies or official job description that you can take, then you can use that and collectively use these documents. So therefore, you need these three things. They have to be validated and proven officially, and that's how you can claim your work experience. Okay, I'm just going to scroll. We can't hear you at all. Okay. Right, let me see. And then somebody says audio is clear. So I'm not sure where the problem is. In the comments, guys, can you just put some comments to tell me if you can really hear me or not? Okay. Meanwhile, had a nice appointment with you. Thank you, sir. Can I remove my Canadian education after ITA? As after PNP, I have enough points. Well, if you already have an ITA, first of all, thank you for acknowledging. And yes, thank you, everybody. You're all commenting below. Thank you. Appreciate it. So if you already have ITA, why do you want to remove your Canadian education? Just go with it. Don't remove it. Because once you have the ITA, I usually don't like to mess with the application, right? I mean, yeah, it's like sacred. And the less chances you take with it, the better it is. You don't want to mess around with it. So there is no point of removing your education at this point of time. Just go with it. Absolutely fine. Okay, I got an invitation through OINP stream. Amidst the processing time, they changed the median wage requirement, and now they're asking me to update my wage from my employer. How will this affect? Well, the requirement is that you must meet your median wage, and if median wage has been improved, then your employer must send a letter or must give you a letter in stating that they will increase your wages to meet the median wage. The impact cannot be too much. I think it's only less than $1, I think, in most cases. So your employer will need to say that, yes, they will increase your offered wages to meet the median wage. And then your application is all good, and there will be no problem with that. Can a pest control certificate give me 50 points? In my opinion, I don't think you can, but you should check your occupation to see if it is on the list of the NOC codes that IRCC has issued out, which are primarily in the trades category. I may be wrong. I mean, I don't remember exactly if pest control certificate is. Also, this certificate has to be issued as a certificate of qualification. It just can't be that you did a course in pest control and you got a certificate for it. So it has to be issued by a regulatory authority. It has to be a certificate of qualification, and it has to be for an occupation, which IRCC has already issued out a list which they considered as eligible for the certificate of qualification points. What should we put on our marital status for PCC from India, because there is no option for common law? Well, in that case, just show it as single. It doesn't matter what the marital status on your PCC shows. Your PR application should show the correct marital status. Can I return to Canada on an applied work permit status if I visit my home country in December, as my student visa expires on December 31st? Now, I do not know which applied work permit you're asking me about, but usually once you leave Canada, your implied status is no longer valid. You basically will be returning back to Canada as a visitor if you have a TRV. If you are a person who has applied for a postgraduate work permit and you are on an implied status as a postgraduate work permit, then that is the only instance where after you return back to Canada, you will be returning back as a temporary resident. You'll be returning back as a visitor, but because you had applied for your postgraduate work permit, you will be able to continue working, and that's absolutely fine. That is the only time you have that exemption. Other than that, yeah, there is no problem. I mean, other than that, other than that, if you are on an implied status, for example, you did a fake extension, you applied for an extension of work permit, extension of study permit, or whatever that might be, and during that period of implied status, you leave Canada, you travel outside, then you lose your implied status. So when you return back to Canada, you can no longer continue working or studying, whatever the case. No. So there are no such streams where while you are pursuing your studies, you have an opportunity to apply for PNP. No, you have to complete your education. I think quite a lot of provinces do have that option. New Brunswick has one, Ontario has one, but along with the completion of studies, you might also need to get a job offer. So the good way to look at it is to check individual PNP websites and to see where you might fit with your expectations and profile. I'm living in Montreal on closed work permit, having family tie here. I replied to Portal 1 email with Montreal address while eligibility not started. Due to my location, any chances of PR rejection at any stage? It can happen, of course, if IRCC feels or believes that your intention is not to reside outside Quebec. That is the primary premise of express entry application, that your intention should be to reside outside Quebec. And if IRCC at any point of time feels that you do not want to live outside Quebec, then yes, it could create an issue in your application. I just want to say thank you for all your live streams and videos. It really helped me for my journey to Canadian PR. I am so glad to hear that. Thank you so much. And I congratulate you and I wish you all the very best. Okay, let's just take a couple of more questions before I scoot off. I have a day full here in Mexico City. Working as an office admin, part-time 30 hours, but pay stubs from payroll deduction online. Since owner hires accounting, have my name and company name. I honestly cannot understand it at all. I apologize. The point is, at the end of the day, if you have work experience, you have genuine work experience, genuine documentation, you have pay stubs that show you're working at least 30 hours per week, then even if it shows as part-time, it will still be considered as full-time. There is no problem there. Oh, I lost that question. Okay, last question. When I applied for study permit, my Indian experience was software developer. Now, can I change it to data administrator because roles and responsibilities? I got employment letter as data administrator. Well, again, the whole point is at the time you filed for your study permit, you could have called yourself anything, because if you have given a roles and responsibilities letter then, which showed you as a software developer, and now you want to show yourself as a data administrator, then that obviously is a clash. But if you just called yourself a software developer, but actually you're a data administrator, well, then you may be able to get away with it. At the end of the day, your documentation has to be genuine. You should be able to prove and provide enough documentation to establish your work experience to be genuine. And as long as you're able to do that, then it should not be a problem. Well, that's all from me today, folks. Thank you so much for joining in. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. And of course, we will do this again. Until such time, take care and be good. And hey, don't put out all those hate comments. Just be nice, live happily, and be more tolerant, be more patient, and be more sensitive. And of course, stay forever hopeful.